let's start off today with present progressives or present progressive. I want to show you how to, in other words, how to use it. I want to address creer, leer, oír, and ir, their I to Y change. And then I want to look at using it with pronouns. And so this will be an introduction to another lesson we'll do. And so just out of the gates, estar and the gerund are the two components that go into the present progressive, right? That's what makes up the present progressive. How do we conjugate estar? Estoy, estás, está, estamos, están, estáis for vosotros, right? Which would be right in there. Más el gerundio, so plus the gerund, which is our ing, and that is our ando or our yendo. You determine which one you use by the ending of the verb. If it's an AR verb, you do ando. If it's an IR or ER verb, we do yendo, right? And the way we get to that is we drop the AR, ER, and IR. We're left with the stem, and then we add ando or yendo to the stem itself. And that's what gets us, for example, corriendo, right? We add yendo to ER. And so an example of that would be nosotras estamos corriendo. With it being nosotras, that's all females, right? And so we are running, right? And that would be a group of females saying that. Nosotras estamos corriendo. Another example is ellos están estudiando, to give you an example of an AR, right? So estudiar becomes estudiando, and then you pair it with están because that's agreeing with ellos. Right? And then we'll get to this in a second. And so one of the things I wanted to also address was stem changers, right? Sort of a side note, if you will, right? These are in the preterite, third person singular and third person plural. And what I want to draw your attention to is in much of the same way that E to I changes in the preterite, it also changes in the gerund. And so notice that similarity with pidió y pidieron, and then you have pidiendo. So that similarity is, you can see it both in the preterite and with the gerund. Again, another example was servir. You have sirvió and sirviendo, or sirvió and sirvieron, right? The preterite, and then your gerund would be sirviendo. So that E to I change here also happens, again, like I said, in the gerund. And so that's just a little side note. I want to bring you to number 2 here, creer, leer, oír, and ir. So this is to believe, to read, to hear, and then to go, right? That's what those mean. And then in their gerund form, in much of the same way we had an I change, or E to I change here, you're going to have an I to Y change here. And that's that I of the yendo is going to become the Y. And so your gerund for creer becomes creyendo. Your gerund for leer becomes leyendo. Your gerund for oír becomes oyendo. And then ir, to go, you just drop the whole verb and then it becomes yendo, right? Estoy yendo al parque. I'm going to the park, for example. And then lastly, how to use this with pronouns, right? And so, first of all, you have to understand what the noun is before it's converted to a pronoun. And so we have an example here, and then we have the 2 different ways you can use a pronoun with the present progressive. Here we have estás comprando el libro. You are buying the book, for example. And this is our direct object noun. That's what that stands for. That's what we're going to convert into a pronoun. And so you have 2 options. You have option A and option B. Option A puts the pronoun before the conjugated verb. In other words, before estar. If there was a subject pronoun like to, it would be to the pronoun and then the present progressive. So letter A here, option A, is lo estás comprando, the lo being the pronoun that agreed with the book, the masculine singular book. And then our other option is to attach it to the gerund. If you attach it to the gerund, you have to put an accent on the A of the ando or the E of the iendo. That's because you've now added extra letters to a gerund. And so you have to make up, you have to sort of indicate where the stress or accent will go. And you do that with a written accent. And so this other option is estás comprándolo, all one word. Whereas these are three separate words, this is one word in and of itself, and you just sort of attach it to the gerund. So that, in a nutshell, is how we use the present progressive in Spanish.